Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask the Professor, a viewer-powered feature dependent upon your support for its continuation, in which we respond to your questions on everything from economics to political philosophy, from current events to the course of history.
All right. Isabel would like to know what your thoughts on M103 are.
I think that this motion reveals so many things that are wrong with modern society. It's like a buffet. I'm not quite sure where to start. It's a lot of things here that need attention. In the first place, I think the fact that it singles out Islamophobia is not innocent. It's not innocent in the first place because it implies that Islamophobia is this giant seething hatred afflicting so many Canadians that the government, which they elected, needs to make them into better people than they already were. It recalls Bertolt Brecht's idea about dissolving the people and electing a new one. It's very strange that we would put in governments that turn around and say that we must now be straightened out because we're so wretched. If that's the case, why did we elect you? In the second place, there is a push by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation to ban criticism of Islam worldwide, to criminalize it and only it. This is apparently very rigid and narrow-minded conviction that everybody's secretly a Muslim. That even people who say they're not Muslims, even people who say they're other religions, understand that Muhammad and the Quran must not be criticized because he is the messenger of God and the Quran is God's word, and all that other stuff is just blasphemy and nonsense. You know, a lot of us don't think that. And it's very strange that our governments would want to do anything that might imply that we did or even move us in the direction of acting as though we did. And, other people have said, oh, well, it's just emotion, it's completely harmless. And in that, it does rather fall into, I heard a British member of the European Parliament call it virtue signaling gesture politics. And thus, it indicates for a lot of people doing something absolutely empty and without effect is the height of political acumen. That's really weird. If you think this is important, do something about it. If you don't think it's important, why do you stand up and blather? But then when Justin Trudeau was asked about it, he said, well, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater, implying that this is going to be the basis for restrictions on speech. So we can't even tell what they're up to. And that's terrible too. And then you get the opposition, a lot of which seemed not to get to the core of the matter, which is that in a free society, you do not restrict people's right to express their opinions, even if their opinions are offensive. That you see these adult protesters going around with signs saying free speech does not equal hate speech. Oh, yes, it does. That's the whole point. How are we to test ideas? How are we to meet them in combat and defeat them if we never find out what they are? There's the defenses for free speech. In the first place, an unfamiliar idea might turn out to be true. In the second place, if it's not true, the process of combating it will expose it and refute it rather than leaving it to fester underground. And in the third place, if a new idea is wrong and people are obliged to argue against it, it breathes new life into their convictions about what is true, including that being hateful, nasty, paranoid, and obnoxious is a bad thing. So this motion never should have come up. It shouldn't have passed. It shouldn't have been debated the way it was. Apart from that, it was a splendid episode in Canadian parliamentary democracy, but those are a few significant considerations.
But just to be clear, this doesn't actually do anything, that motion, right? It's just an expression of it's an expression of our feelings at the moment.
Yeah, it's an expression of our feeling that Islamophobia is the most serious hate crime in Canadian society, which of course is preposterously false. And it may lay the groundwork for further actions. It may be taken as guidance by the Human Rights Tribunals that are not bound by normal rules of due process, or it might be ignored. So it's either going to do something harmful or it's completely useless. Why do you spend time on things that at best, that you cross your fingers and say, let's hope it's useless?
Okay, but let me put it this way. Why wouldn't I be happy if my political adversaries were busy doing things that don't matter instead of doing worse things that actually do matter, like passing legislation, raising taxes, that kind of thing?
Well, because in the first place, they're spreading false ideas. First of all, that Islamophobia is a major problem. Even the term is ridiculous. Nobody would ban, as somebody said, nobody would ban claustrophobia. You can't ban irrational fears. It's a targeting a very different thing, which is criticism of Islam. And in the second case, it might be laying the groundwork for something that does matter. So you have to wonder, what is the motive of these people? You hope they're such fools that they think doing something useless is useful, but you have to worry that at least some of them have thought the thing through in a slightly more troubling way. So we shouldn't talk nonsense. We shouldn't spread false ideas. I mean, if you want, anti-Semitism is a far more serious problem in Canadian society than Islamophobia, including some hair-raising sermons coming out of mosques. So why did it single out Islamophobia? It's odd. And odd things, you hope they're just weird, but you can't just treat them as though, oh, well, it must be harmless. it might not be. So it was just a bad idea from beginning to end.
All right. Well, thanks for that. Folks, if you would like to play along and ask your question of the professor, the URL on your screen will take you to a page where everything is explained. Thanks, and see you next time.